All right. Thanks, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for coming today, and thanks for joining this discussion. Hopefully, everybody had a chance to get a little coffee. We're feeling a little energy before we go into lunch. So, as Ashley mentioned, my name is Colin Stauffer, co-founder of Big Impact Group. We're going to be talking about practical prompt exercise that you can do within Copilot. However, everything that we're going to talk about today is agnostic of tools, whether you're using Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, etc. You can use these techniques there. And as we go through, I will be using the state's Copilot instance. So if you have your own commercial license, et cetera, it's like I don't see agents or other things, just know this is because we're working within the state's Copilot tenant. Those things will be rolling out a little later than the commercial instance. So real quick about who we are at Big Impact Group. We believe that AI is the most transformative technology that we will see in our lifetime. So our mission as an organization is to help public sector organizations adopt and accelerate the use of AI within their agencies, within their departments, and then across the state or municipality. And that's what we do. All right, let's get this a little interactive. So show of hands, who has used Copilot today or an LLM of choice? Okay. All right, now second show of hands, who has used those tools and felt that the results felt kind of fine? It's kind of forgettable. All right, fair amount of us. That's what we're going to be talking about today. We're talking about how we go from AI mediocrity to actually using it to what they're capable of. So you'll hear this online a lot. Stop using AI like a glorified Google search. So now this stat is a couple months old, so don't quality check it. It was accurate when I created the slide. But at the time, the average number of words in a Google search was 5. 5 words in the average Google search. At the time, the average ChatGPT, and I use ChatGPT because we're about to tip over 1 billion active users, right? So it's the most prominent tool. So a good kind of representation of the world. At the time, the average first prompt was 7 words. So think about that. Think about how much time you spend typing in your Google search. I know for me personally, when I go to Google, it's hacking it in. Like the words are out of order. I rarely check if I spell right, et cetera, because I know what I'm going to get back. If it's not the first link, it's in the top 2 or 3, right? So think about how much time and how much context you're giving the tool if you're only using 7 words. Think about it this way. And Zach, the previous speaker, spoke to this a little bit, but think about it this way. The Indianapolis Public Library has roughly 14 million books. The Library of Congress has roughly 34 million books. So if you've ever been to either, you kind of understand kind of the immensity of those 2 facilities. The latest models are trained, if you want to equate parameters to books, and I know it's not exact 1-for-1, but bear with me. If you want to equate parameters to books, the latest models are trained on libraries, the equivalent in geographic size of Connecticut and Delaware combined. Think about that for a second. The amount of knowledge that's in there is the size of a library that is 2 states. And in front of that library is a librarian who is a savant, who you have to give context, intent, intention to them. So they're going to go into that massive treasure trove of information and bring back what you need. So let's how much context are you really giving your AI tool if you're telling that savant in front of a 2-state library 7 words? Not much, right? It's going to be a little bit difficult. That's where you start to see the slop. AI is making assumptions. It is trained to make you happy, which means giving you back a result. So it's going to fill in all the gaps in the context that you didn't give it. And most of the time, it's not going to be right. Also, the difference in the 5 to 7, most of the time is just please or thank you, right? And that's not any additional context. So when we talk about don't use AI like a glorified Google search, this is what we mean. All right, so what does that look like practically? So we talk about a good prompt and a weak prompt. This is literally an example from a workshop that we did a little bit ago. You know, I think we've all heard of tariffs, right? They literally typed in, how do we address tariffs in China from our goods coming from China? Didn't give anything about the company, didn't give anything about what the goods were, how much they're importing, exporting. Not a great prompt. That librarian's not really going to be able to help them go pull that information. Now we walked through and thought through it a little bit. This is the first iteration. Instead of how does our company deal with tariffs, it was our company manufactures 90% of our products in China and is experiencing significant margin pressure to U.S. tariffs averaging 245%. Provide a detailed analysis outlining specific short-term actions. So what I want you to go do, I've given it the context, now I want you to go do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Include examples of comparable companies who have successfully navigated similar tariff challenges, right? So you see how the result of this prompt is going to be significantly better than how do I deal with tariffs, right? And that's the context, that's the grounding that we're working with. How do we better interact with AI to improve the quality of our outputs? So the thing right now is context. We're starting to see more and more parity across the models between Anthropic and OpenAI and Google, et cetera. Really where the investment's going to be going in the next 6 to 9 months is around context and memory. And how do we connect everything together? Context is king for improving the value of what comes out of your AI. Who are you? What is your background? What are you trying to achieve? What have you tried in the past? What constraints do you have? What is the timeline that you're working with? The more information you can give your tool, the better the output is going to be grounded in your reality. So if you remember nothing else, remember that the more context you can give it, the better output you're going to get. Prompt engineering 2 years ago was supposed to be the hottest job on the market, right? People are running out paying people $250,000 to be a prompt engineer. And candidly, right now, your AI tool can do a better job of prompting than you're probably going to ever need to. So that whole thing has gone past. And so as a result, there's 30 or 40 or 50 different models for what makes an effective prompt. And I don't really care about which one, but there are some key things to keep in mind when you think about what you're feeding your AI. Expertise, right? What is the expertise you want your AI to have for that particular session? You are an expert legal advisor about state agencies. You are a marketing professional, New York quality, but you focus on municipal government. You are an expert ISO accreditor, right? Whatever it is, give it the role, give it the expertise so it knows how you want to think about the interaction. Then there is tone, right? Tone is how do you want the output at a level? So for me, in my external communications, I have it draft everything at a 5th grade level. Right? It knows it's built in my custom instructions. It's built into my memory. So my AI knows that when I'm writing something for public facing content, it knows to generate it at a 5th grade reading level. When I'm generating content for internal communications, it generates it at a 10th grade reading level. Right? And that's just something that my AI knows about me because I've told it to remember that. And so as we think about tone, think about how we tailor that for the audience, level of complexity, word usage, et cetera. Very important as we think about in the public sector and aligning with plain language standards and what we need to put out to the general public. Level, right? What's the depth of knowledge required? How deep are we want to go? Do we want this a PhD? Want this a Jedi level? Tone and level kind of go kind of in together. But then style. Moving over to this, you can change the style of how you write. When we work with a lot of municipalities, I do a fun little demo where I say, hey, I want you to write a script for a commercial for my municipality, but I want you to do it as if you are Quentin Tarantino. And it's just like fun, right? It's actually kind of cool. Go out and do that next time. Write a script for my honeymoon written by Quentin Tarantino. Do something fun. It's actually really cool. But what they see is now the tone is dramatically different than what they would have gotten had they just typed in, write me a script for my community, right? You see that the difference in the output. So think about it. Who's your favorite author? If you're a Patrick Lencioni guy, if you're a Tom Clancy guy, I don't care. Think about how you can give it that style. Now, that's if you want to reference something externally. One of the things that we spend a fair amount of time when we're doing enablement in workshops is how do you personalize it for your style? So quick hack for anybody who's here, if anybody's ever generated AI output and they're like, you give it to somebody who's like, okay, we know you used AI to create that, right? I'm one of those people. I made the mistake. I wrote my wife a Valentine's Day card using ChatGPT. It went about as well as you could imagine, right? I didn't sleep on the couch that night, but it was damn close. It ended with, I appreciate it. Don't ever do that again. But a few weeks ago, I gave her something that I'd written with my AI, and she didn't know who that AI had written it. That's when I know I won. It had to, she kind of knew, but she didn't know. At least she couldn't tell. That's what we're striving for. You can actually personalize and tailor your AI to speak with your voice, your tone, your inflection, your context, your expertise. And that is something that could work on with the AI. So it's something that, say, take your favorite writing, that time that you were just perfectly caffeinated, you actually got more than 5 hours of sleep, the kids weren't beating at your door, you actually did something you're really proud of. Upload a few of those, say, hey, review this writing, define this as my writing style. It will output that. You can use that prompt every time you're going to write in your voice. So that is very important as we think about style. But takeaway, there are different things that we can do to make effective use of AI. So now let's get a little more tactical here. We could do 20 slides of best practices and tips and tricks, etc. I picked 4. These are the 4 that I use every day, but there's more than that. The first one, ask it to show your work, right? We hear about hallucinations, confabulations. Let's see if they'll actually do it. The problem is all the AI tools have gotten smarter because folks like me use this as their example, but we'll see. If it gets it. Yeah, I got it right. All right. Anyway, it used to work out pretty well. But to the point, what you would do is then you'd say, hey, walk me through, show me the steps that you got there, walk me through your logic. If you go step by step, you get the right number. Anytime you are doing a large, complex analysis, show me your work, show me how you got there. Give me the information that I need to validate what you did. State your assumptions. By making it go through, it's called chain of thought. By making it go through that step by step by step, it takes time at each step in the analysis and improves the output of your content. The second one is provide a golden example. Call this few shot. So if we've got a suite of SOPs or policy documents or memos, etc. We ask AI to generate something. If it doesn't know that context, and we're spending a lot of time trying to reformat it to align with what we've already got. Skip all that step, upload it, say, here's examples of what we've done in the past. I want to generate this new piece of content, align with that. Now, quick hit. If you upload something, it will potentially over-index on that thing. My sister runs a bar. She uploads some of her previous marketing content. She asked ChatGPT, hey, create me a new piece of content. And it just kept going back to things that she'd already done. It's like, hey, either start a new chat or tell it, I want you to do the exact opposite. So just be careful when you upload something, it potentially will over-index and it'll think you're trying to create that even when you're trying to do something different. So just tell it. The last 2 are the most important 2. If you do anything, do these next 2. So in the previous conversation, Zach showed how, hey, ask me clarifying questions. Help me build the context. When you ask AI to do something, it has a bunch of questions. It fills those in and makes some assumptions so it can bring you back a response quickly. Don't let it make assumptions on what you're doing. Start your interactions with, before you begin, ask me clarifying questions. Ask me clarifying questions. I'm going to answer them, provide the context that you need before you begin. Or another best practice, before you start something brand new, interview me to get all the context you need before we even begin. I do this all the time. I'm driving to a meeting. I'm driving home from work. I'll put the voice chat on. I'll say, hey, I want you to interview me about this topic. Go one by one. I'm going to give you a response. We're going to keep going from there until you have the context you need to help me with this activity, this project, this problem. I promise you it will save you an immense amount of time going back and forth with your AI if you take the time up front to give it the context that it needs. And the best way to do that is to have it ask you clarifying questions so it's not making assumptions. And then the last one is the second draft rule. I do this with every piece of content that I create. It creates something, a complex document, an analysis, a memo, whatever. Say, hey, I want you to go review what you just did and make sure everything you did was your best possible work and that everything is accurate. I'm going to get fired if you mess this up. And invariably, it'll find, oh, you're right, I got this wrong, or, oh, hey, I made this assumption. You might want to validate this assumption, or, hey, we could beef this part up. Having AI critique its own content is the best editor. I don't even read the first draft of anything AI ever gives me. I always say, hey, review what you've done. When I'm lazy, I'll do it within the same chat window. When I'm actually working on something that's going to go out, I'll paste it into a new chat window, ask it to do it there with new context, or I'll take it over to a different tool. If I'm using Copilot, I'll go use Gemini and Claude and ChatGPT to consolidate all the feedback from those 3, dump it back into the original tool, Copilot, and then say, here's the feedback I got from the other AIs. Now let's update and make the content you created as good as possible, right? So these are 4 very tactical examples of things that you can do in your day-to-day that will make the outputs that you get from your AI tool significantly better. And this is not specific to any tool. This works across the board, but it also works in Copilot. So, okay, we talked about the things that you need to do to create an effective prompt. you're going to go back to your office, you're going to go home, and you're not going to remember tone and style and all those things. You don't need to, candidly. Right now, the best writer of prompts is AI, right? We talked about I don't really care about the formats anymore because AI knows how to write the best prompts. So for the most of the time, I'm not starting the prompt myself. I'm asking AI to take the first pass, and then I critique it from there. So what does that typically look like in practice? And how do we blend in some of those other best practices that I just mentioned? So the prompt says, write me a prompt around SOPs for entering vaccine data at a state agency. Anybody who's ever used AI, is that a very good prompt? No. We didn't give it context. We didn't give it its role. We didn't give it our intended audience. We didn't give it the style, the level that we would want it to have. But okay, it still was able to take that and write out a decently good prompt. Much more detailed than if I just would have entered that first sentence into AI. But we're not done. What do we talk about? Have it review. Now I want you to critique the content to make the best possible, in this case, prompt that you can. It's going to go through and it's actually going to evaluate the prompt that it just wrote. Right? We think, well, it wrote it. Wouldn't it have made it the best possible thing it could have written the first time around? No. These tools are trained to give you as accurate a response as possible in as short a time as possible. Asking it to critique is forcing it to go back, spend more time iterating through and evaluating. So now it's going to go through, it's going to give me my strengths, my opportunities to improve, and give me the improved prompt. Okay, pretty good. Now ask me 3 clarifying questions so you make the best prompt possible, and I don't look like a fool in front of all these people. The last part you can add it if you want to, little comedic relief, but actually sometimes helps. So it's going to go through and it's going to ask me 3 clarifying questions. One, what's it asking here? Which CM is you're working with? IDOH. It doesn't really matter for the purpose of this. We're just going to give it random answers. These and doesn't matter, right? But you get the point. The intent is not to show, but the intent is now that I've given it inputs, additional context that it needs, the quality of the output of the prompt that it's going to create is going to be significantly better. And we could go back and forth. We could say, hey, keep asking me more questions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we've seen as we've gone through this iteration, how much better the output, in this case, the prompt is. This works across the board for anything that you're doing, whether it be a memo, a presentation, a document, an analysis, going through this exercise of helping it start the prompt, then critiquing the output of whatever you create, asking you clarifying questions before you begin, and iteratively going through that, in addition to then reviewing it and giving it guidance on what you like or what you don't like. So these techniques go across the board. Now we say, okay, I don't want to have to do that on my own every single time. So let's just go and save it. So what I have is a suite of just a variety of prompts that I use on a recurring basis, and I save them in a notebook. So all this prompt that I just put in here was exactly what you just walked me go through manually. Take this prompt, identify role, style, tone, etc., much more robust than what it did on its own, then critique the output, then ask me 3 clarifying questions, then go through the whole thing over and over again. So once you found your workflow, your particular way of interacting with AI, you don't have to remember it every time. Just save it as a prompt. And if you're using the state's Copilot instance, create a little prompt library. We use those prompts all the time, and you're using it every time you want to go out. Right now, personalization and memories are turned off in the state's Copilot instance. So, okay, Colin, you talked about personalization in my style. Remember, define my writing style. Save it in a notebook, and you can paste that in when you need to create some public facing or some important document, right? You can start to save these prompts and use them for future iterations. So that is how we can go through it. All right. So when we think about AI, folks always ask me like, okay, what are like the top use cases that we can go do? I think that public sector, especially state government, is one of the, if not the most ripe for opportunities for AI use case. And we could sit up here and list them for days and days and days and days and days. But whenever anybody asks me what's the most important use case for public sector, I say it's not a use case at all. I say it's enabling our folks, right? Teaching them what AI can do, how to best utilize it, so then they start to see opportunities to go apply it out on the field. Centrally enabled, federated out capabilities. Your folks are the ones that know where the pain points are. They know the problems, they know the challenges. So let's make sure they know how to effectively use AI so they can identify these use cases and address them through Copilot or whatever AI tool you've made available. And if you can't, and it's beyond what you can do in a simple prompt, let's work with our partners at MPH and IoT to get that in the backlog to build those out, because the additional AI capabilities are there. They're in the background, but let's build up our fluency before we jump into the big, hairy, scary stuff. So at this point, we'll walk through a couple of examples, kind of just how else we could be using these tools in specifically Copilot, given the capabilities and the restrictions within the state's Copilot tenant. So the first, which is one of the main reasons why Copilot is valuable in the state, is it has been turned on to point towards your internal Microsoft account. Right, so it has access to SharePoint, your email, etc. So the prompt that I've put in here, and make sure you put it on the work tab. I always forget to toggle between the work and the web. I don't know if I'm the only one, but my brain just can't wrap its head around. If you ever do get going down a rabbit hole and you've been working, you realize that you were in work and not web, just ask it to say, hey, I'm in the wrong tab. Generate all the context I need to take this over to the web version and just paste it in so you don't lose all of your work, because that's happened to me like a dozen times. But the prompt I just put in, I've got a backlog of emails from this Colin Stauffer guy at Big Impact, me, from the past 2 weeks. Read through them and give me 3 things: a plain English summary of what's actually going on across the thread, what he's working on, what's the state of play, a list of everything he's waiting on for me. This is a big one for me. Now, obviously, it's a demo, but when I'm going in, I'm reviewing my email. Hey, what is the thread? Where does things leave off? Who's waiting on something from me? And what do I need to do to get it out the door? Because we read our email, we go on about life, we forget where everything left off, etc. So this can actually be very powerful as we think about synthesizing data from our email inboxes, especially if you're like me and don't do a great job of keeping that curated. So across the exchanges from this Colin Stauffer guy, we talked about day-to-day preparation. We're working with the state and MPH right now to do training for the cabinet level secretaries, chiefs of staff, and directors. So there's some content in there back and forth about, preparing for those sessions. And then a governance framing decision as we think about, rolling things out to the agencies. What is Colin waiting on from you? Please get him those things, etc. And then what Colin has committed to deliver to you. All right, so you can start to see how we can use AI to synthesize and break down the time it takes to just sort through all of that. I couldn't tell you how many times I go into AI and say, hey, where did things leave off with this stakeholder or this group or this project? Go look at my email and let me know where things landed. Someone went out on PTO for 2 weeks and we'll pick it back up when they come off, right? We've all had that situation, like scouring emails and is this the latest, etc. I just go to AI for it all the time now. All right. So this prompt was, build me a prep brief for my next meeting with Peter Miller at MPH. Pull together the meeting time, attendees, and stage agenda for my calendar invite. Any emails from Big Impact Group in the last 3 weeks that touch on topics Peter is likely to raise. The open decisions or pending action items that should get resolved in the meeting. 3 questions I should go in prepared to answer. How do I go in as prepared as possible to this meeting based off the agenda and the email threads that I have with Peter? Formatted as a 1-page brief. I could read it in an elevator on the way in. I don't want a 7-page document. I'm not going to read it. Give me the TLDR. All right. So in prep for my meeting with Pete, meeting details from my calendar, emails with Big Impact Group, what's been going on over the last 3 weeks, relevance to likely topics Peter will raise, and then open decisions or pending action items to resolve in the meeting, the logistics around cohort 3, preparation for today, and then the Q3 roadmap. 3 questions you should be ready to answer, blank, blank, blank. Now, this is all fake data. Don't read into that. Those are mock-up emails that I sent for the purpose of the demo, but you get the intent, right? By having access to your email, to your calendar, to your SharePoint, you now can use AI to synthesize the tasks that were manual, time-consuming, or you just forget to do. And one of my favorite ones is, hey, here's the transcript. Can you take this transcript from my email and then generate a response, a reply email to the attendees, right? I'm horrible at sending those follow-up emails afterwards. So whatever your workflow is, the fact that it's natively inbuilt and you don't have to download and copy and paste, very, very powerful. And again, it's been mentioned a few times this morning, there's a lot of security behind the scenes, so you can only see access to the stuff you have access to through SharePoint, OneDrive, etc. Okay? All right, moving on. So this is a hack for AI that I was personally a little late to the game on, but it has absolutely changed the way that I interact with AI. I'm going to go in then and okay. This. One of these days I'll learn how to use a computer. Bending over thing is really annoying. Okay, well that's running. I will show you quickly what I just did. This is all fake information. So what I uploaded was a notice, a mock notice. None of this is real. This is fake. Around a Hoosier 2030 press release that was going to go out from the governor's office. It's got a bunch of content in here, reaction to state legislature, frequently asked questions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to imitate, the type of content that would be put out into the wild. Well, historically, what have we had? You can pass it around to the folks in your organization. You might have, a sample group that you can send it out publicly to kind of imitate that, but you were very, very limited, or doing those activities is very time consuming. Now what you can do is you can have AI step into the role of the stakeholder that you're going to be sending your content to, right? But think about the role of the public as how we break that down. Other stakeholders within your organization, your boss, your boss's boss, the mayor's office, the Facebook mafia, all right? Ask AI to take on those personas and evaluate this content that you just created from those roles. We talk about bias and assumptions and hallucinations in the AI. Well, guess what? Every single person in this room has bias. You are biased based off of your experience, your knowledge, what you've been doing your entire life, etc. Sometimes it's difficult for us to see from the perspective of other stakeholders. AI can be a phenomenal tool to review and evaluate your content before you send it out. Is it going to get it 100% right? No. But is it going to be significantly better than sending it out into the wild without that initial feedback? Yes. So here's the example that I just did. I said, and again, all these are like quick, and it would be much more detailed if we were doing this for real, but it's a demo and things have got to work live. Also, why I'm doing it in quick mode. If we were doing this for real, I'd have it in auto or deep thinking. Again, we got to do it for the demo. You are a seasoned public sector communications advisor who has briefed governors, cabinet secretaries, and agency leaders through high-stakes announcements. You understand how Indiana state government operates across agencies like FSSA, NDOT, IDOH, DOC, etc. I'm going to give you a topic or initiative. Generate 10 things that these audience will like, 10 things that, what's next? 10 things that they were confused about, and 10 realistic questions, objections, or concerns that a room full of Indiana cabinet secretaries or commissioners will have. Okay? What you like, what you don't like, what questions they'll have. Goes through and has a bunch of content about how I wanted the format. I wanted to do mixed tones, don't overly positive, overly negative, etc. I want you to imitate different perspectives. There's some things that we can do to navigate so we're getting the best possible output. So then I uploaded that file that I just showed you. 10 things that senior leaders will like about it. No layoff commitment, the clear phase implementation timeline, projected $31 million in annual savings, etc. 10 things that they will be confused about. All right, where can we add additional context, clarity? Maybe there's some additional data that we can attach, some additional analyses or numbers or charts we could add. How 80% of the transitions online aligns with the statutory ID verification requirement, what quarterly access audits entail, etc. And then 10 realistic questions they will raise. How confident are we that the mobile branch units won't experience major downtime, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then what you can do is, based off that feedback, stop it. Go away. Okay. Now generate the updated content based off the analysis that you did. Again, that's just a more constructive way to do critiquing the content that it created, right? Now it's not just critiquing. Take a hint. Come on. So now we talked about critiquing the output. Well, okay, it's critiquing it from its corpus of the world's knowledge. Now I want you to critique my output based off my specific stakeholders that this content is going to go to. So as we think about how valuable this can be before we send this off to our boss, to the governor's office, out into the public, this allows us to incorporate that feedback and refine our messaging, refine the content before we send it out. Again, AI is phenomenal to be able to take a step back and look at things from a different perspective that you may not be able to see it from. Make sense so far? All right. Okay. Then I'm going to spend a couple minutes. The other thing that this is going to be specifically within your Copilot environment is one of the things that is turned on. Everybody that has the M365, the full license, should see notebooks over here on the left. These are ways that you can create. I create one for my prompt library where I keep all my prompts, but actually the most, I think, impactful way to use these is a way to collaborate with your teams. You'll see anytime you open a notebook, you can actually share that to other users across the state environment. You can pick individual users and only they will have access to. You can say whether they read or whether they contribute, etc. So in this case, I created a notebook. It's called the Federal Funding Impact Desk. And the Copilot instructions for how I want it to behave within this notebook: you are a senior policy and budget advisor to Indiana State Agency leader. Your job is to help the leader understand federal policy shifts, translate them into operational and fiscal implications, and prepare for stakeholder conversations. Always ground your responses in the uploaded pages and documents. Means I want you to always first go to the content within my notebook before you go out to the internet. Use plain language, no jargon, keep responses to one page, et cetera, match the format to the ask analytical questions, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So those are the instructions. You can put that at the notebook level, and every interaction that you have adheres to those instructions. Then from here, I've uploaded a one big beautiful bill summary training reference and IDCI budget narrative training, right? So some external documents that these are fake, by the way, once again, some external documents, but then also where Notebook becomes a hack, where it goes beyond just RAG against your SharePoint, and why I'm sticking your time to show you this, is if anybody uses the OneNote feature out there, we have OneNotes that we share that we're collaboratively taking notes or updating things that we're sharing across our group. Same functionality directly within Copilot. So you and your team can be updating, editing content. So this is a federal policy tracker, key federal shifts. As my team is going out and they're doing their research, they're copying and pasting that content into here. So we have the key federal shifts that we care about as part of our organization. Again, all fake data. Agency program inventory. What are the programs that I oversee that I want to ground the interactions around? So I've got that list of programs. And then finally, for the purposes of this demo, I've got my stakeholder map. So I've actually gone out and taken a look at who are the stakeholders in the General Assembly, in the Senate, in the House that I care the most about, advocacy and external shareholders, right? And then agency peers, and then coordination cadence, right? We can see how these are the folks that we care the most about. We want to make sure that as we're tailoring messaging, or we're keeping these folks in mind as we do whatever it is we're doing, right? So you kind of see how we've gone beyond just RAG or retrieval augmented generation to there was the critique or the instructions. And so now I can come in and just ask questions out here in my chat. This may take a second, but based on the federal policy tracker page that we just pulled up, what are the top 3 federal funding shifts I should be tracking right now, and which of my agency's programs are most exposed? Okay. So I've got my narrative pages that are going in there as my team is adding research, adding content, et cetera. They're adding it in. So this is one example as that goes, where I've seen this also be very, very useful. Folks create a notebook for a project. How many times we have a large multi-stakeholder project, everybody's running different things. We keep a OneNote page for every segment of the project. Folks go in once a week, they provide their updates, they can just talk to it and it can dictate in there, or they can paste it in. Then the project manager, program manager, director can just go ask questions at the top of the chat. Hey, where are we at with each thread? Who's giving me their updates, who hasn't? Makes the whole status reporting or project tracking much more efficient. I've seen that be one of the ways that folks use the notebook functionality a lot. So again, I asked based on what are the top 3 federal shifts or funding shifts that I could care about. It gives me the TLDR. direct impact based on the documents that I've included in my notebook, and then additional items to watch, which programs are most exposed, recommended leadership actions, etc. Then I can go in and ask it to say, hey, based off this, draft a one-page briefing memo I can hand to my chief of staff before tomorrow's meeting. Right. And so the same types of things that you could do in your general chat, you can do right within your notebook. But again, here you're grounded on the context and the information that you specifically want to use. Folks who are familiar with Notebook LM, it's a similar type of mindset to that, where I don't want to hallucinate. I just want to generate content based off the information I've given it. Now, you could also change your instructions to say, make it a combination default to internal. If you don't have it within this notebook, then go to the web. You can decide on your workflow, but it's a very powerful tool that is turned on within your Copilot license. Again, if you have the full M365 license. So you start to see, so just drafted a nice memo, key summary of federal shifts, medical provider, etc. Okay, so that is notebooks. Got some other demos that we can do at another date. One thing I will call out on the data analysis side of things, I think it's really, really important to keep in mind that AI tools and Copilot especially are really, really good at helping you synthesize data and not just creating narrative content. Taking my data, find all the data discrepancies, profile this data, what are the data errors, generate a chart out of this. What I've been using it most recently, we don't have time to show it, is, hey, okay, now that we've performed this analysis today and you know what I'm looking for, now go create an HTML dashboard of this content that I can then share with my team. Yes, it's static, it's a point in time, but we talk about how AI can help us rapidly prototype. Having AI generate an HTML dashboard of the analysis you're trying to do, then I can see exactly what the numbers look like, how it's formatted. Then I can pass it over my data team, say, hey, go build this in Power BI, go build the data pipelines to automate this. But now I've cut down on that back and forth on my requirements significantly because I'm able to show them exactly what I want to see, right? And Copilot can natively generate HTML that you can just open up in any browser that you use. It sounds technical. I promise you it is not. Just say, hey, build me an HTML dashboard and it'll do it. So moving on, because we've got 2 minutes. So last thing I want to hit on is I personally fall into this trap all the time, and you notice the majority of this conversation has been around how do you generate content with AI. Where I saw my personal use and where I've seen the vast majority of my clients' use of AI take that next step level is when they started using it as a thought partner, as a strategic advisor. Not, hey, give me this output, not, hey, make this decision. Help me think through this problem. Help me brainstorm. Help me navigate this complex topic beginning to end, right? So, for example, you just received a new federal directive with a short compliance window. That's applicable. Starting on the strategy side, what is this thing? What does it mean? What are the impacts of my organization? What are the risks of incorporating that? What are the root causes and not just the symptoms of the problem that I'm trying to solve? What are we missing? What have we not talked about? What are the assumptions that are being made that I'm subconsciously making that I don't know? What biases am I bringing to this discussion, right? We talked about having it step outside your role, view it from an external perspective. And then what are the second and third order impacts of implementing this thing? Next, you move in the analyst. Identify the key deadlines. What do we need to be compliant for each step along the way? Highlight the operational implications, right? So now we've gone to strategy, defining the problem. Now we go into let's create the plan. Now let's go execute it. Define the detailed action plan. Outline the SOPs that we need to go create. Create internal communications, right? So not only do we have to go do this thing, we have to do the change management piece. How do we generate the comms to different layers of stakeholders based off this? None of this was a one-time prompt. This is a structured thought process that you can use AI to go through. I've got a bunch of prompts that are out there that I'm happy to share with folks how I use AI to facilitate this exercise. But I promise you that once you shift your mental mind away from I'm just using AI to generate this thing or go do this research to how it become a true thought partner, it will unlock so many things for you and really help to challenge your assumptions and the quality of your thinking. So I challenge everyone today to definitely think about how AI could be a thought partner and not just a content creator. Hopefully those are tactical, practical examples. And so we are at time. I have one request of everybody today. I want you to take time right now Take 30 seconds, everybody, on your phone, on a piece of paper, mental note, but write this down. One task from this week that took you longer than it should have. That's your first prompt tomorrow morning or Monday. I want you, as you're going through today, think about, we all come in here and we hear about this stuff in AI, and it's a lot of theory, et cetera. The way that we move the needle on our use of AI is to get hands-on. If you're the person that, hey, I'm trying to figure out a reason to, go figure out the thing that took you longer than it should have. If you're the person that's already deep in AI, go put a sticky note on your monitor that says, could I be using AI to support this? Because even today, I find myself doing something manually, and I have to force myself, how could AI help me do this thing? And invariably, it will help. So if you do one thing today, please do this. Go find that thing that you are going to use your prompt for tomorrow morning. And with that, we're done. You can open up to Q&A.